How's it going, guys? Welcome to part 10 of our series. In this part, we're going to be talking about try and except blocks. Try and except blocks are a way to handle errors, okay? And errors, you must have seen them somewhere down the line in my tutorial. It basically doesn't let you run the block of code that you want to run. Here's an example, okay? Let's just say let's just say I just wrote print x, okay? This doesn't make any sense because x was never defined, right? X was never assigned to any value. So if we wanted to, if we run into any error and we wanted to do something with it, we have that's where the try except comes from. So we have the keyword try, and then we have a colon, and then press enter. That's the indent. So we're gonna try this block of code. This is what that says, right? It might or may not run into an error, and if it does run into an error, we're gonna go into our next block of code, which is under the keyword except colon. It's a block of code under this, and we're gonna print out an exception occurred. Okay, and an exception means exception is just another way of saying this is an error. Right, an exception has occurred. And if we printed this out, we can see that Python is going to try this block of code, and it's going to see that you're going to run into an error. And instead of yelling at you, hey, this is an error, it's going to do what you want it to do, which is under the except block, and it's going to say print an exception occurred. No error, and it says print an exception occurred after I ran the code. So that's the essential idea behind try and except error. Now, what if, this doesn't run into an error? So let's just say, what if I write print 3? Well, it's fine, right? You're going to try this block of code, and if it's fine, we're not going to have to jump to the except code block, right? This only gets executed if this block of code that's under the try block of code, it runs into an error. What if we wanted to do something, not just when there's an error, but also when there's no error? That's where the else comes from, okay? So there's a try block, there's an except block. You can also add in an optional else block. And you can say everything is fine, okay? So it'll only go to the else block if there is no error, right? It goes to the except block if there is an error. So in this case, because there's no error, it should say 3, everything is fine. Okay, so that's the else block. What if you wanted to print it no matter whether or not you ran to an error or no error? That's where we have the finally block. Everything is fine no matter the error, no matter the existence of an error. Okay, so in this case, this prints fine, and so like there's no error here. So. And it will also print this because it's in the finally block. And even if I add an X here, it would still print this because it's independent on whether or not there's an error. But it also prints the exception block because there is an error. Last thing I would like to say is you can actually raise your own exception. So you can create your own errors when you're writing your program. And this is how you do it. Okay, and it sounds kind of weird, but hear me out. Let's just say we have if 5 is greater than 2. Okay, this from our tutorial, this is a true statement, and then we're going to execute some code down here, and then we're going to have the keyword called raise, and then we're going to have this word called exception. Okay, this is a class from Python that you can create. So I say raise an exception. So this is where you can make your own error, and you say my first handcrafted error. Okay, so if I run this, okay, so it executes 5 is greater than 2, which goes into this block, and then it says raise exception with this message. So you can see that we have an error looking message here, right? And it says my first handcrafted error. So this looks very similar to errors that we've seen before, but it's what we created ourselves. You may think why, you may wonder why would people want to do this. Well, if you're creating your own program, you're letting other people use it, there may be errors that is outside the scope of what Python can provide you, right? For example, if the user makes an account and tries to make a password with, it needs a capital, and the user, when they're making an account, they're not putting in a capital letter at all. Well, that's when you can make your own exception. You can make an error and let the user know that you gotta put a capital letter as part of your password. Python wouldn't know what the hell that means, but you do, because you're the developer, and that's where this could be useful when you raise an exception. All right. And there's many types of errors. Okay, exception is just one of many. You can pick another error called type error. Type error is also a class, and it can take in a message. Okay, so you can see how the error says exception, my first handcrafted error. But if I run this, it would say type error, my first handcrafted error. So the kind of exception or errors you can throw completely depends on you, and it's provided by Python, and you get to pick what message that you want when you show it to the user. Okay, so that's try and except block. This is probably the last part in this series. I'm definitely gonna make a more advanced Python tutorial series for a little bit more advanced topics. After watching all these parts, you should be able to know, a lot of the essentials of Python, and you can code your way out of the basic stuff. I hope you enjoyed this series. As always, if you liked the video, smash that like and subscribe if you like my channel. Thanks for watching, and happy 2021. And if it's not 2021, happy 20 something.